The role of an executioner in medieval society was far more complex and intriguing than you've probably imagined. Beneath their grim reputation, these shadowy figures lived surprisingly privileged yet isolating lives. But the real story behind their daily existence, their hidden status, and their secret struggles might genuinely surprise you. My name is Charles, and today I'll take you behind the medieval curtain to reveal what life was truly like for an executioner during the Middle Ages. Executioners weren't just grim figures performing macabre duties. They held a strange, contradictory place in medieval communities. Often shunned publicly, yet privately admired for their skills, executioners were both essential and feared. But why exactly did they hold such contradictory social roles? To understand this, you need to grasp the curious balance medieval society maintained between justice, superstition, and social taboo. While being responsible for carrying out justice, the medieval executioner paradoxically lived on society's fringes. Often assigned isolated houses on the outskirts of towns, executioners experienced profound social exclusion. They weren't allowed to enter marketplaces without wearing distinctive clothing, clearly marking their identity. Yet despite this isolation, the executioner was granted special privileges few others enjoyed. They received unique protection from authorities, as their profession was essential to maintaining public order. But what really set medieval executioners apart was the unexpected medical authority they held within communities. You might ask yourself, how could someone who took life also be trusted to save it? Strangely enough, executioners often doubled as healers and surgeons. They became experts in anatomy, gaining a deep practical understanding through their grim profession. Common people visited them secretly for medical advice, especially when regular doctors were scarce or unaffordable. It wasn't just anatomy. Medieval executioners frequently possessed profound knowledge about herbs, medicines, and healing remedies. Surprisingly, they often provided treatments for various illnesses, wounds, and injuries. This dual role increased their influence, making them indispensable, yet perpetually feared. Imagine seeking medical help from the very person responsible for executions. It was an unsettling, yet fascinating contradiction, wasn't it? Beyond these surprising privileges, executioners carried psychological burdens almost unimaginable today. Performing their grim duties required an immense mental strength, frequently taking a severe toll. Although they tried to project authority and stoicism in public, privately many struggled emotionally. They faced nightmares, stress, and anxiety, dealing constantly with the moral and spiritual weight of their role. How did they cope with such burdens? That's an intriguing question we'll explore shortly. Executioners relied heavily on rituals and beliefs to maintain mental and spiritual equilibrium. Many sought comfort in superstitions, believing their profession was a divine duty or punishment, dictated by fate rather than personal choice. This mindset helped them rationalize their challenging tasks, shielding them psychologically from the weight of constant exposure to death. Yet executioners also feared supernatural repercussions. Medieval folklore held that executioners risked curses or eternal torment for their deeds. To combat these fears, they performed specific purification rituals, prayers, and even secret rites. These practices provided them with an essential psychological shield against the intense stress and guilt they regularly experienced. Interestingly, the position of executioner was frequently hereditary, passed down from father to son. Often this happened simply because nobody else was willing to take up such a despised profession. Families of executioners became isolated clans, living separately and rarely mingling with the wider community. Despite being indispensable, their lineage remained marked by social stigma, perpetually excluded yet ironically privileged. But here's something most people don't realize. Executioners were often financially stable and even comfortable, thanks to the special rights and fees associated with their grim duties. They received regular salaries, were given valuable gifts, and even obtained exclusive rights like collecting personal items from executed criminals. They profited from selling these items privately, enhancing their income significantly. However, this financial security came at a steep social price. Executioners and their families lived permanently on society's fringes. Their children faced severe discrimination, barred from education or respectable professions. Marriages into executioner families were rare and heavily stigmatized, creating isolated family units trapped between comfort and perpetual ostracism. Yet despite all this, or perhaps because of it, the executioner's story provides a fascinating glimpse into the hidden tensions and paradoxes of medieval life. Their daily realities reflect broader societal contradictions, where justice intertwined with superstition, privilege with exclusion, and authority with fear. And there's still much more beneath the surface of this mysterious figure. Executioners didn't only wield physical tools, but held significant psychological influence. Medieval rulers often employed them strategically as symbols of authority, relying on the executioner's public actions to convey powerful messages. Public executions served as both spectacle and cautionary tale, reinforcing the ruler's dominance while deterring potential rebellion or criminal acts. Surprisingly, the executioner wasn't merely a tool of justice. He was also a political actor, deeply embedded in medieval power structures. In fact, executioners often developed unique relationships with powerful nobles and rulers. Due to the confidential and sensitive nature of their duties, executioners gained access to secrets known by few others. This proximity to power meant they sometimes played unofficial roles as confidants or informants, becoming involved indirectly in court politics and intrigue. Could executioners subtly influence decisions at the highest levels? Historical records hint that, on rare occasions, their confidential insights impacted key decisions, though publicly they'd remain hidden behind a mask of anonymity. Of course, executioners faced constant threats. Despite protections provided by the law, they were perpetual targets for revenge attacks, particularly from families of executed criminals. To guard against such threats, they often lived fortified, isolated lives, always cautious of outsiders. Security became an obsession, shaping every aspect of their daily routines. Even when traveling, executioners adopted elaborate disguises or protective escorts. Imagine a life spent constantly glancing over your shoulder. This intense vigilance defined their existence. Astonishingly, despite these dangers, medieval executioners maintained strict professionalism. They meticulously documented their work, keeping detailed records of every execution carried out. These records served legal, financial, and historical purposes, becoming invaluable archives centuries later. Modern historians have uncovered executioners' diaries that reveal not just grim details, but emotional reflections and daily struggles, offering rare insights into their surprisingly thoughtful inner worlds. But here's a curious twist. Despite their notoriety, executioners remained indispensable for society's sense of order and justice. When towns found themselves without an executioner, Panic and chaos sometimes ensued. Criminals went unpunished, communities felt insecure, and rulers lost an essential tool of social control. Remarkably, the role no one wanted to admit they valued openly became suddenly critical in times of crisis. Executioners were thus paradoxically reviled and needed, embodying a fundamental medieval contradiction. Eventually, the position of executioner evolved, influenced by shifting societal values and changes in legal practices. Over time, society became uncomfortable with the stark public nature of executions. As medieval Europe transitioned into later historical periods, the public role of executioners diminished, giving way to more discreet methods of justice. But how exactly did this shift happen? And what became of executioner families as their roles faded from public life? The answers to these questions are even more surprising than you might expect. Many executioner families pivoted toward medical professions, capitalizing on their deep anatomical knowledge and healing skills. Gradually, former executioners became respected doctors, surgeons, and apothecaries, their grim past forgotten or quietly hidden. Remarkably, descendants of executioner lineages contributed significantly to medical advancements, laying groundwork for modern medicine. This transition shows a fascinating historical irony. Families once feared and ostracized evolved into respected contributors to society. Yet even today, centuries later, the executioner remains one of the medieval period's most fascinating and enigmatic figures. Their lives were filled with extraordinary contradictions, privilege and isolation, power and vulnerability, justice and cruelty. Few historical roles encapsulate so vividly the complex moral ambiguities and societal tensions of the Middle Ages. So next time you picture the medieval executioner, remember there's far more beneath the dark hood than meets the eye. Behind their grim duties lay surprising privilege, hidden authority, and deeply human struggles. Understanding their complex story not only enriches our perception of medieval society, but also reveals timeless truths about human nature itself.